Harmy, what I really want to say to you is 69 years, 313 days, Joe Linton, Livramento, Kieran Trippier, Pope in goal. Dan Burn is the best feel-good football story I can remember in my life. I didn't even know that Blythe Spartans were a real team, but that's where he came from, having been released by Newcastle at the age of 11. He played for Blythe Spartans, where he was born, moved to Darlington, Brighton, come back to Newcastle. He's 32 years old, and he scores that goal, which ends a cup drought of 69 years, 313 days. I love Newcastle United.
Oh, everybody seems to love Newcastle United. We ain't got enough time in this section for me to go on. Where do we start? My weekend started at 11 o'clock. Well, it didn't start at 7 o'clock in the morning on my way down on Friday morning to Lords to see. I seen obviously Scott Taylor was there, Matthew Hoggard and me, Simon Jones did an Ashes lunch. And the drinking started about 11:30 on Friday morning, and it finished I think about 2 o'clock this morning, like Tuesday morning. So, it's been a long weekend. We haven't eaten much in between. You mentioned that. Dan Burn, what a wonderful story. Blythe Spartans, both. Ben, who played cricket for Durham and Kent. Ben, my brother, he played for Blythe Spartans, only for a few games. And my dad played a couple of hundred games for Blythe Spartans in the 80s. So, it's a huge non-league club, but Dan Burn, what a story. The whole club. Manners, I've never experienced anything like it. There must have been 100,000 Geordies in London over the weekend. I was at King's Cross Saturday afternoon, and the atmosphere was fantastic. I've never been to Wembley before, right? So in the time I was training at Newcastle got to a final under Sir Bobby Robson, Ruud Gullit, and I was on the field playing for Durham at the time. I think it might have been once for Durham and once for England on the field. And then 2 years ago, we were in New Zealand. When Newcastle played Man United, I had to look at Sam Allard's ugly face at 5 o'clock in the morning watching that final. Missed out on that, so I had to be there. And I've walked out at Lords, and I've walked out at the likes of Newlands and Cape Town and Johannesburg for the national anthems. And when you're in it, you don't really feel it. When you're in it, you walk out, you've got your kit on, you're ready to go and play. The anthems go, and then it's playtime. Probably the biggest stadium for that would be NCG on Boxing Day, 100,000. We bowled first, which is an amazing feeling. But I stood there and I was nearly in tears. When Newcastle walked out, Eddie Howe walked out, Bruno Guimaraes, I have never experienced an out-of-body feeling like that. And I know I'd had a few at the time, but everything was stand on end. I was nearly in tears, and then to see them win for the first time in 70 years. That was just the icing on the cake. So it was a brilliant weekend. It's something that you see, you look. Pardon the pun, but I think Alan Shearer was on the TV more than Mo Salah. That's how poorly Liverpool did play. But everybody to a man, and you mentioned Joe Linton. To describe how that fella plays football, it's like watching an under-16 playing an under-11 game sometimes when he's on. It's just a human wrecking ball goes round. I'd love to know his GPS numbers. It was ridiculous. And then afterwards in the box park, all the players came in and celebrated. The players were in celebrating with the fans. It was an amazing weekend. So I probably got on far too long about my celebration. I couldn't speak for 2 days. I did breakfast the next morning, and Ali McCoy's face when he seen me for the first time was a picture, because it was like, wow, look at the state of you. How many my eyes were drawn on. I just don't know how I spoke. I'm just getting my voice back. So it was great. Brilliant weekend.
Well, we've got a couple of interviews coming up, Harmy, which I suspect will be quite long, so we can keep this section short. But I was never, ever going to start the programme without talking about Newcastle's 2-1 win against Liverpool. Just two things to talk about, really. Woody, again, subject very, very close to your heart. I don't know whether you have spoken to him. It's the 8th major operation that he's had in his career, and he puts on a brave face, doesn't he? But you've told us before that, it wears you down, and the prospect of going through all that rehab once again to get himself back. He's going to miss the Indian tests, isn't he? Probably. Yeah. So just all focus now on the Ashes at the end of the year. So there's there's Woody. He turns 35 in January. Does he give up red or white ball?
I just think he needs to get to play again and make the decision when, in 4 months' time, when Mark Wood's ready to play cricket again. I think that's when he needs to reevaluate his career. I have spoken to him. I've seen the news had come out, so I assumed that he was about to go in for the operation. And when I rang him just to see if he was all right, because obviously the news had broke that he was going to have the operation and be out for 4 months. He'd actually had the operation. He was in the car on the way home. His dad was with him. And he was down. He was also, the one thing I'll say, before the ODIs in India started, when I spoke to him on the phone, he knew the extent of the injury. So Mark Wood has not sort of got to the Champions Trophy and got injured during the Champions Trophy, and he's now out for 4 months. Mark Wood knew before he went to India that he was possibly going to have an operation, and if the operation was going to be needed, it was going to be a 4-month rehab. So he knew this. So I think because of that, that sort of softened the blow for him a little bit. Doesn't stop people from the outside having a go, which really shouldn't affect anything in Mark's thoughts. For me, Mark Wood just needs to get himself fit. And once he gets himself fit, whether it's end of August, September time, sits down with Rob Key, Brendan McCullum, and the rest of the medical team and work out a plan for where he goes next. And whether it is white ball cricket, whether it's red ball cricket, get him to the Ashes. And once he's gone past the Ashes, then the contract situations is obviously will be ongoing where you go after that. But I think at this minute in time, it's about rehab. And he's gone through his 8th operation. And, our producer, Scott Taylor, came with me and Hoggy. And we caught up with Simon Jones during the week. And Simon Jones, somebody else who's gone through something similar. And Si just said he's just got to make sure that he stays, focused, single-minded. It's a lonely, lonely business coming through rehab. And got to get himself in a position to take on what is going to be a big challenge, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel is November and Perth. And that has to be Mark's sole focus now.
Yeah, so maybe just Ashes and then play 20 over. I mean,
yeah, but a decision matters. I think you've covered cricket for long enough, and you know that, especially the human element of people. And I think it's about making sure they get to a point where they're fit, and you make a better decision when you're fit. When you're not fit, you make irrational decisions. When you're fit, you make rational decisions, and I think that's the most important thing for Mark right now.
Okay, the other subject that I wanted to ask you about is Sam Curran being named Surrey's T20 captain. He'll take over from Chris Jordan for the T20 Blast. Is that in any way a reflection of what Sam thinks or what Surrey thinks Sam's chances are of an England recall? Would they have appointed him captain if he was likely to be unavailable for some games? I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? Or maybe it's just Surrey thumbing a nose at Rob Key and saying, you know what, if he's not good enough for you, he's good enough to be our captain.
It would be my choice. If I was, I don't know what the extent is of the decision making, whether Bats is solely in charge or it's Alex Stewart still around. But I think my first thoughts was when Sam Curran was rejected, would be right. Well, I'm going to make sure he's in leadership position for Surrey, because if you don't want him, we will have him, because we know how good he is. We know the quality of him. His face does fit with us, even if it doesn't fit with you. It fits with us. His timeline of games fits with us, because he's not going to be away. And if you're not going to pick him for England, we'll have him. I don't see it anywhere shaping Rob Key and Brendan McCullum's decision to either have a white ball captain with Sam Curran's name close to it, or a white ball team with Sam Curran's name close to it. I just think this is Surrey going, well, our best man for the job is Sam Curran. I mean, Chris Jordan did a good job for Surrey. And I think it's a similar selection. Somebody that's in the game for 20 overs of both sides, because Sam can be in the game at the batting side and the bowling side. Where England go with a white ball captain, and we haven't got enough time in this section to talk about that. I'll be amazed if it's Sam Curran. And there's talking about Sam Billings, and there's talking about James Vince, and I mean, England don't look back, and I'm pleased. I hope they don't look back because they need to look forward. Whether it's right to give it to Harry Brook right yet, but doing some of the numbers. I mean, some of our numbers in white ball cricket, and I went through it last night when I was trying to sober up. And I mean, we've had 4 or 5 glory years between 2017, 2018, and 2022. And looking at the numbers of our white ball players over the course of the last sort of 30 odd years, I mean, it's staggering. It's a marked difference. I think we've got in the last 2 years of players that have played in the last 2 years, their whole careers. I think we've got Duckett and Root averaging over 48. We've got 3 other players in Stokes, Bairstow, and Milan. I mean, you look at Milan's numbers and the way he was treated and the way he was talked about compared to the likes of England. A lot of England fans going, why are we not picking James Vince? Why are we not picking Sam Curran? Why are we not picking Sam Billings? I mean, you look at the way we treat David Milan, and his numbers are ridiculous. He averaged 55 and 36 in T20 cricket. And they're the only ones that are averaging above 40. And I look at across, and you always look at the best teams in the world. You look at India. India's top 6 at this minute in time all average 49 or better in a hell of a lot more games. And we are looking, I mean, and some of our lads have played over 100 games and they're averaging in and around 40. So it just shows you, we think we run the game, we think we own the game, we think we're the best team in the game. But other than 4 or 5 golden years of white ball cricket, we've not been very good in that format for the last sort of 20 or 30 years. And to try and find a captain at this minute in time with 10 test matches against India and Australia, I don't think we should be prioritising that. I think we pick that after the Ashes and then move forward. And that's the only way I'd then pick Harry Brook.
Now the highlight of the week, as I promised at the beginning, we're joined by Northamptonshire head coach Darren Lehmann, who needs no introduction, so I'll give him a long one anyway. He's won 2 Ashes, the County Championship with Yorkshire in 2001, the 2015 World Cup, the IPL, the Big Bash and the Sheffield Shield. He's now been appointed head coach of Northamptonshire on a 2-year contract. So, Buff, many thanks for your time. Why Northamptonshire, and is there room in your trophy cabinet?
Thanks for having me, you two. First and foremost, the timing was right, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I'd spoken to some other counties previously in the previous few years to get over there and coach the county side. It just hadn't worked out the right way, and this one did. The right time. I've been working with ABC commentating during the Test summer, and I couldn't really get over here for the whole time, but Northamptonshire made it work where it's a sort of 7-month, you get here just before the season. I've been here for a month now and working with the lads in pre-season, getting to know them, and then staying until the end. So it just worked out well. The timing was great. The clubs and the previous clubs that were keen to get me there, they've been fantastic as well. So it just worked out well this time.
And both you've been very successful, like Matt has mentioned, everywhere you've gone. Just talk about your sort of way of thinking as a coach, because as a player, very free spirited player. I think I would argue that you're very, very similar to sort of Brendan McCullum Bazball, but I'm gonna say this with an element of but you seem to have you play a bit smarter cricket. Where the Bazball era, I mean, it doesn't seem to play the smartness of cricket at times. When you've gone into environments, it seems as though everybody's going to have a great time. Everybody's going to love playing for me. But we actually have an idea of what we're trying to do. We'll just take us into the way you think about the game of cricket.
Yeah, you probably hit it on the head there, Harmy. We're just trying to play. We want to entertain people. There's no doubt about that, because that's what we're in the job to do. There's no problems, and we'll certainly play. You know me better than most, Harmy. We'll play a positive brand to try and get results each and every game. That's what we're trying to do. But be a little bit more consistent with the approach and not Bazball. I mean, I love watching Bazball on flat wickets. I think it's a perfect way to go. And if we get a flat wicket in counter cricket, we will certainly play quite aggressively. But as soon as the wicket does anything, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work because it seems too much and it's too hard just to go gun ho all the time. So you've got to play or oscillate between all of them, if you like. Sometimes you've got to play good old fashioned, backs against the wall and just play defence, because that happens on some wickets, as you know, in England. So, I mean, I'm all for entertainment because I think that's what people want. But I'm also, You want good, hard 4 or 5 day cricket. What's the point in finishing in 2 days when you're slogging it and getting out? I mean, it's all well and good on flat wickets, and it does work, Harmy. I think you've seen that, and you've probably said that. Actually, you boys have said that on the show that on flat wickets it works. But if the wicket does anything, it's
Yeah.
Back to Northamptonshire. I've copped a bit of flack over the years. I think I christened them a group of wannabes, has-beens, the unloved, the old, the young, the underappreciated. It's an eclectic bunch, or has been over the years. You know, they just seems to have been sort of thrown together. You've spent a month with them now. What do you make of them? Still full of characters?
yeah, characters. I've really enjoyed them. I'll tell you what we have got. I think we've got a couple of blokes who play for England. What I've seen, just short term. You know, they've got some talent there. I suppose what they're after is some guidance and how we want to play and accept how we want to play. And you know, some days it's not going to work for you, but they've got the full backing from me. They'll have that, as you guys know. I'm pretty forward with the way they want to play and how they want to enjoy themselves and learn. The only way you get better is learning from your mistakes as well. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. But as long as they make them the right time and learn from them, that'll be the big thing. A different bunch, I suppose you've got that because you do have blokes coming from different counties at various times. But when they represent our county now, I want us to represent our county as a whole, not from where they came from, who they're playing for. So that's a big thing for us, and embracing the past, you know, with our past players, and making sure they're learning a lot about themselves collectively and individually, and then hoping and praying that they actually leave us in a better state. We want to make sure they're better people on and off the field, because cricketers these days, you know, it's a tough sport mentally and physically. I get that, but also, you know, there's so much goes on behind the scenes. I want to make sure they're okay as people. That's probably the biggest thing for me, lads.
And obviously you mentioned some young players that potentially could play for England, but Northampton have produced players that have gone on to play for England. You know, 3 I can think of in the recent past who possibly didn't play for Northampton while playing for England, but they came from the system. Ben Duckett, Ollie Stone, I think David Willey's now back. Actually, David Willey's an interesting one because he's going to play in a PSL. But you've said you'd be interested in playing some 4-day cricket, and that's important if you've got a leader who has played for England, who's trying to stamp his authority on the group. He's there quite regular and showing by example. And I think both in county cricket in the last sort of couple of years, the teams that have struggled have not had great leadership from a captaincy point of view, and not been successful with overseas players. Charles is not a bad overseas player to come into what is a younger group of Northampton players.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Hummy. I mean, the captaincy role, obviously, we've got a mixture of leaders because of the 100 and the PSL and et cetera, et cetera. That's okay, as long as we're all going in the one direction. The pleasing thing for someone like Dave Willey, for me, is the fact he's training red ball at the moment. He's going to play PSL, but he knows that we need his bowling to be smicko with the left arm swing, and that helps our batters get better facing that. And when he's batting, if he plays later on the year for us in red ball, he needs to be ready. So he's not training for PSL at the moment. He's training for red ball and leading from the front, which is really good. Then you've got Proctor, who's the same with our 4-ball, and then McManus with the white ball. So it's a bit of a mixture of captains, but I don't mind it. It's actually quite good because each captain's actually helping the other captain out and leading from the front. So I'm pleased with that. And you're right, we've got some good young players. I mean, I've been very impressed with James Sales.
Yeah.
I think he can play, mate. I think he's like Game Wings.
I like him. Yeah, I like him.
If I've seen him, he's gone away to Australia this year. I've seen him come back. And I wouldn't be surprised if he plays for England. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets on Ashes tour if he has a good summer. Obviously, you've got to make runs. Although you don't these days, they just pick you anyway, don't they? You don't have to do it.
Need to be first bits. You're all right. You've got a chance.
If you bowl 140, you're in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do. And if you bat and look okay, you're in as well. So you might not have to make any. Anyway.
Yeah, well, you don't get a game if you make 140, I tell you that. You get a good chance if you make 40.
I shouldn't say that because I'm trying to help these blokes play cricket for England, dare I say it.
Well,
so But this James Sales, he actually looks like Kane Williamson. I think he's
Yeah.
that good a player. I think he's if he turns out half as good, you're going to be pretty happy with him. And then Safe Zab is a ripper. He's got some natural talent in the white ball format, but hopefully that develops from a 4-day point of view. And we've got a couple of tall quicks, which you like, Army, Scrimshaw. Those
Yeah.
guys got some pace and bounce. So there's a bit to work with. Yeah, they're exciting times.
I was surprised Scrimshaw left. Sorry, man. I was surprised Scrimshaw sort of left and moved county. But I think sometimes as a bowler, you might need a change of scenery to get away from some bad luck. You have not got to worry one bit, Buff, about saying anything on this show that's going to sort of cause harm or offence, because I do it most weeks. No, I would say most half an hours. So I'm very, very good at upsetting anybody that's in charge with the England cricket team at the minute, and the biggest one's my best mate. So, but no, I mean, you've got no worries there at all. So from that point of view, it's fine. Going on to that, Ashes 6 months down the line. I know it seems a long way away, but it's not. Where do you see both sides at the moment?
Well, I see. I don't think England will lose a Test match or a game in England this summer, because they play very well at home and they make flat wickets for their team. So I can't see, which is a bit strange, really, because I think England always had seaming swinging tracks and they were so dominant on it. It's a little bit weird way to play, but they get results. And then Australia will get ready for the summer, as you'd imagine. Our wickets had a bit more in them, Harmy, this year. They had a bit more pace and bounce. So if it does anything, Bazball won't work. That's just what'll happen. So they won't make enough runs, but they might cause a scare or two with the ball if they've got some, blokes who can put it in the right areas at decent wheels, as you know. So I still think Australia will win. I think England might win a Test match, Harmy. They haven't won one for 15 years in Australia, but they actually might win one. There you go. So I'll go 3-1. But in England, I think they'll dominate this summer. India are a good cricket team, but I think if England get it right and get selection right and playing, I would rather see them playing traditional English wickets that actually seam and swing a bit.
Talking of wickets, when Yuzvendra Chahal arrives, are you going to blow dry one side of the square for him, or can he take wickets on anything?
Why wouldn't we? We'd be stupid not to, wouldn't we? Well, I mean, it's going to turn.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. If you go to India, it spins square. And the way the summer's heading up, we won't have to do anything. It's going to be turning square. There's actually dry parts of the ground already. So for me, I'm actually going, they'll probably turn. The wickets will turn, but that's okay. That's a good learning curve for people. I don't think that's a big thing. And the education for child will give our youngsters, that's a positive thing for English cricket, I reckon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, all this talk when you get to the last 2 games of the season and Somerset have got a turner, or Essex have got a turner, it's like then you go and play on pitches like Hyderabad did when we first landed there, and it's like this is how you have to play. Nobody said you played at Yorkshire for a lot of years, and I mean I once turned up at Scarborough. I mean it was bare either end, and I mean you could have grown tomatoes in the middle of it. I mean, and you had Gough, Hoggard, I think Silverwood, and they all knew how to bowl halfway down the wicket, and it was lightningly quick, which was great for me. But I think if you've got home advantage, you use home advantage. Getting on to something we've got home advantage on because we're the only country that plays it. The 100, you had an experience with the Superchargers. I'm not a big fan of the thing until it goes to T20 competitions. What was your experience like? And now it's been sold. Do you think the best thing for it to be, once the Indian franchise owners get their feet under the table, to get it back to T20 as quick as we can?
Yeah, I'm a bit pro the 100, which I shouldn't say that being coach of Northamptonshire, right? That's probably a taboo subject, but I actually liked it. I like the concept. It brought a huge amount of money into the game. I think it will help the smaller counties survive and their longevity in the game will work then. I agree with you. It should be back to T20.
Yeah.
Indian owners will change that pretty quick, mate. The next TV rights deal will change, I'm sure. So then you'll have a premium. You'll almost have 2 premium competitions if you can get the Blast, which has been excellent for all counties. And then you might have overseas. I can see a stage where the blast becomes just as important because your overseas could come and live in England for oh, 2 months, 2.5 months, and not move and actually play blast and 100. I think that'd be a real flip it for English cricket. So I think it's a positive, both that. I know some people have disagreed with the 100 concept, but I
Just
think
the
we have to
format for me.
do. I
It's
think
the
we have to
format
do.
for me. It's
Yeah,
the
we have.
format for me. I've
Yeah,
got the only problem I've got is the format. I want the best playing against the best, big crowds bringing people in. No problem with that. Me and Manners haven't got a problem with that. But we play a competition for 5 weeks of the year that nobody else understands. And I think T20, the more you play, the better you become. So all the leagues around the world, players get better. Ours just keep forgetting how to play it by the time it comes around again.
I don't disagree with that either, Harmy. But the people that bought the 100 as such, the TV rights, they wanted something different, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that's why the TV money came in, and now you look at it and you go, well, they've actually done the right thing. In terms of the format will go back. There's no doubt it'll go back. If anyone says it's not, well, they're kidding themselves. They'll go back to T20. The problem I have is making sure we've got the right amount of 4-day cricket in there and how we play that and mix and match a little bit. With the 100, you could even have more overseas if you like, and keep the county system alive throughout that, so members get to because it's a members game, isn't it? I know it's
Yeah.
TV driven, but members want to watch their team play, and counties, our members want to watch our best players play where they possibly can. So I think you've got to be careful with that. But in terms of the money brought in the game, it's fantastic, as long as they use it right now.
Yeah.
Look after grassroots and making sure they're spending their money in the right places.
Well, can I finish with a little bit of myth busting? I want you to tell me if this is a true story or not. Ashes 2002, coming towards the end, England losing. Steve Harmison walks out to bat. Darren Lehmann's at short leg. Harmison's facing Brett Lee, and Lehmann says, "Just back away, Harmy. It's no time to be a hero. Just let him hit the stumps." And everyone falls about laughing. True or false?
That was after Tudor got hit.
That was a bad hit, wasn't it, Harmy?
Oh.
That was a bad hit. And seriously, man, that was as fast a spell as I saw Brett Lee bowl. And there was no need to get hit. I mean, it was almost seriously, mate, I would have been backing away, Manners. Seriously, I would have been myself. He was
That was.
rapid. So there's no bravery for anyone there. Anyone think there's a facing fast? But I tell you, when Harmy got it right, he was as scary as the most of them, Manners. He scared me enough, so don't worry about it. I think people that say that they like fast bowling, they're only lying, because when people bowl over 140, 145 clicks, it's not much fun.
No.
It's proper hard work, and it's nerve-wracking. So I remember Alex Tudor got hit really hard in that Test series. He retired hurt, didn't he? He was gone.
Yeah.
You were next in, and it was literally, mate, seriously, do not get hit.
Yeah.
You got kids, and I remember when Shoaib Akhtar was bowling to me in my final years. He was running into bowl, and I was going, wife and 4 kids, wife and 4 kids, wife and 4 kids. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. Get out. Get out.
Right, on to the 100. Harmy and I continuing to vow to develop a taste for this competition, the 16.4. I'm still trying to like the taste of olives. I've been trying for 40 years. I hope it doesn't take as long to develop an affection and affinity for the 100. But the draft was interesting, Harmy, sort of. David Warner was interesting. He was the headline name picked up, signing for London Spirit for 120,000, and then encouraged the crowds to boo him. Said, "Don't boo the team, but if you want to boo me, go for it. Bring it on." You obviously had a couple of words to say about your great mate Jimmy Anderson entering the draft a couple of weeks ago. So you said, what does that say about English cricket with a 42-year-old entering the draft? He went unselected. No Pakistan players were selected. Is that a coincidence, or is that something to do with the influence of the IPL investment? And then, of course, there's the quality of the overseas players. That they don't trip off the tongue. No West Indians, because they clash with the CPL. No West Indians. Noor Ahmed, the Afghan wrist spinner, going for 200,000, top bracket there, as did Black Caps Michael Bracewell. He's a good cricketer. But guys like Chris Green, George Linder, Donovan Ferreira, Ben Dwarshuis, Ashton Turner, these are supposed to be the headline names. Over to you.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed by a little bit. I'm trying my hardest. And I know what Darren Lehmann said, and he's right. It's a competition that I think it will, once the Indian owners get their feet into the table and the next TV deal goes, and it will be a 20-over competition. Once that's done, I'm sold. I think that I'll be fine with it. I think it will attract better players. We've given it more money, so we've given the players more money. And I mean, I don't know where to start. I really don't know where to start. I'm a big advocate for 2 extra teams that mirror the IPL and go 10 teams. One in Durham, from a geographical point of view, one in either Essex or Somerset, which I think when the next TV deal comes around, that's probably will happen. But then I'm looking down the list, and I've got it here. I'll show you. I've got all me. I'm color coded, and I'm looking at it, and I think there's some. You mentioned Jimmy Anderson. What I said about that last week. There's no way, shape I was ever having a go at Jimmy Anderson. I was saying the state of English cricket when you're putting a 42-year-old in. Do you know what I'd rather have, Manners? I think Jimmy Anderson should be coaching one of the franchises. If England had anything about them, ECB, they'd get Jimmy Anderson to coach one of the franchises. That, for me, would be much better than Jimmy playing. And as much as I want Jimmy to play. But I was trying to sort of see the state of English cricket. I think I look down them lists and go, the white ball team, and I touched this in section 1, how bad English white ball cricket has been other than a 4 or 5 year golden period. I don't think we get any better with these group of players that are playing English cricket. I don't see our white ball team getting better. And at this minute in time, yeah, hands up. I know all teams have got 2 wild card picks, and that's where youngsters are going to come in. But I'm looking down the list here. Zach Crawley, 120 grand. Joe Clark, 120 grand. Cola Cadmore, 120. Jordan Cox, 120. Worrell, Gregory, David Payne in that 120 bracket. Paul Walter is in the 78 bracket. And I hate to bring this up because he's a good kid. He's a friend of mine. At Durham, he's going to be a smashing player. Graham Swan talked about him. He had got 100 in Australia in the Alliance. Ben McKinney, he is a smashing young man. And I really hope he succeeds. He might be on the plane in Ashes. But he's in the 78 bracket. Does that tell you where our English cricket players are? Because in that 78 bracket is Heinrich Klaassen. Heinrich Klaassen is in the £78,000 bracket. Ben McKinney, and this is the example. I'm wrong to pick out somebody, but I'll pick out Ben. He's got just over 1,000 runs in professional cricket across all formats, red and white ball. And he's in the same bracket as Heinrich Klaassen, who is the best white ball batter, middle order batter in world cricket. One of the best one of the best strikers of a cricket ball you'll ever see. 2020, 50 over, he is one of the best. Done at World Cups. His team hasn't gotten him over the line, but he has been fantastic in World Cups. Kane Williamson, arguably one of the best players that's ever played the game. Multiple, I think he's won more than one IPL. He's in a £78,000 bracket. So when people talk about why I'm on my high horse about state of English cricket, I mean, that for me just says quite a lot about English cricket at this moment in time. When you look at, you earn the right to be where you are in the pecking order. And if we're going in and telling a young player, there's your £120,000 contract, white ball format of the game. When not just Ben McKinney, but I'm talking about quite a lot of them that's in and around between sort of 75 and £120,000 bracket, when they've done very little in sort of pushing towards getting an international. That's the standard of our tournament. And I mean, when it comes back to it, it really worries me that how English cricket, white ball cricket gets better, because I mean, the mentality we have in this country has been accused of being arrogant, and I think we are at times. I think the standards we think we set for ourselves are not the highest standards. And we talk about, like Rob Key said the other day, you know, and I'm probably talking a load of rubbish now, but we are, you know, we go out there, but I think some of our administrators also don't help themselves by, our coaches talk about playing a free-spirited brand of cricket. It's not about winning, it's about entertaining. We're picking players that average in test match cricket in the 30s and never look like dropping them. We've got no accountability for failure because we keep our white ball players over the course of the last 12, 18 months have made the same mistakes. They're still getting picked. Your face doesn't fit, you haven't getting a go. And then when you're starting to up the ante and bring in more investment, and all you're doing is giving more money to possibly a little bit of mediocrity. When you look at the best players in the world coming in at the same brackets, it's some players who have no chance of playing international cricket or have done very little in the game. I mean, where's the incentive and the drive to be better when you're just handing them out like that? And I might sound like an old man here, but I'll tell you what, I looked at that draft and thought, I'm really underwhelmed by that competition. And then when you play the format that nobody really knows how to play, I fear that I hope the 100 is going to be good this year. I really do, because it's off the back of 5 Indian test matches leading into an Ashes. We desperately need a good 100. Now, let's wait and see.
I'll tell you what gives me indigestion is the disparity between the top brackets and the bottom brackets. I mean, you know, you've got, again, we're just picking names out. You've got Will Jackson, Tom Curran on £200,000. Just remind me what the bottom couple of brackets are. I mean, it's like a week at Centre Parks, isn't it?
31,000. The rookie ones, there were 2 wild cards and one player. So the brackets go. So we go from the top. You've got an England player, essentially contracted England player. There's no value on that, so we don't know that. There's 2 at 200. There's 2 at 120. There's 2 at 78, 2 at 63, 2 at 52, 2 at 41, and 3 at 31. There's a couple of them have got 0.5, so it's 78.5.
Yeah.
And you look at, you know, there's quite a few well spread, and there's a few older players who have earned the right to be paid in the top bracket, like to Johnny Bairstow, who, you know, still performing in leagues around the world. But I look at this group in front of me here of 8 teams, and all I want to see, and when I look at this, I look at the example I make is when we got to India not long ago, me and you, and we seen basically India's A side was a byproduct of the IPL. Good young players coming through and smashed England's A team, smashed England's big boys. I mean, the sort of, you know, the Abhishek Sharmas, the Tilak Varmas, all these players, Sanju Samsons that have come through the IPL. And where's my group in 2 years' time from the 100 going to be pushing to improve English white ball cricket? Let's see.
Right, it's time to talk European T20 League. Brand new league sanctioned by the ICC. It'll run from the 15th of July to the 3rd of August. Includes 6 teams based in Dublin, Belfast, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Edinburgh and Glasgow. It's an extremely exciting, ambitious project. Initially, it'll be up against the English T20 season, the 100, the MLC and the CPL. But I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Cricket Ireland Chief Executive Warren Deutrom and Abhishek Bachchan, co-owner of the European T20 League. He's got extensive experience in sports management in other sports. Gentlemen, we've got a massive list of questions. But can I don't know, I'll leave it up to you to who starts. Give us an overview, because the European League's, it's had a false start, hasn't it? Maybe even a couple of false starts, but this time it looks like all cylinders go.
Yeah, we've said, I'll start if that's okay. Just to give you the overview, it is across 3 countries. So the ICC gave us a sanction back in October time for the league, and it's going to be across 3 countries. You've outlined it's going to be a city-based franchise competition, 2 teams in Ireland, 2 in Scotland, and 2 in the Netherlands. We're going to start off in year one in going to be around mid-July, and we're going to go into the first week of August. And actually, we're going to be slotting in between, we're going to follow the end of the MLC, and we're going to go into the first week of August, which should have clear blue water before the 100 starts. If we go a couple of days in, that shouldn't be too much of an issue for us. But yeah, that's basically the overview. It's the first league that the ICC has approved, which is going to be across multiple jurisdictions, which I guess has the double-edged sword of being both unique, but also adding to the logistics and adding to the various requirements we have. But that's nothing which is making us particularly concerned. As far as we're concerned, the ICC has 1/3 of its members in the European region. And for us as Cricket Island, we conceived of the idea a number of years ago because a lot of our players, as were the Scots and the Dutch, simply weren't getting the really extensive opportunities in the big franchise leagues overseas. So for us, it's very much driven by a performance objective to ensure that our players have the opportunities to be playing with and against the best teams in the world, as the majority of the other more mature full members are able to do in big franchise leagues.
Yeah, Abhishek, you've been involved in the investment of a lot of other sports. Actually, I've just seen on my TV. I think is it the Kabaddi World Cup's going on at this moment in time. So you've invested in Kabaddi. You've gone into the sort of Indian Super League from the football point of view. Why cricket? I know India's obviously massive with cricket, but just give us an overview of why you've decided that this is the right time not only to invest in cricket but this project alone.
Yeah, great question. So obviously being Indian, we're all cricket obsessed. Cricket is the #1 sport. I've always wanted to be involved in sports apart from my acting that I do. About 10 to 12 years ago is when I started my journey of sports entrepreneurship, and started with Kabaddi in the Pro Kabaddi League, and then bought a team in the Indian Super League, which is our premier football tournament that we have in India. 2 years ago, we invested in the Indian Street Premier League, which is a first of its kind tennis ball cricket league, gully cricket as we call it in India, of which we're the current champions. I own the Mumbai team in that. And obviously the quest was to work my way up into cricket. For me, investing in a sport is about, trying to make a difference and trying to be able to contribute in whatever way possible. In India, I think cricket is very sorted. There isn't much room for, what can I do to help and increase any sort of footprint at all. But over here, I think with the European T20 League, we had the potential to be able to make a difference to the cricketing ecosystem and franchise league ecosystem around Europe. So that's why cricket, and that's why the European T20 League.
I'm not quite sure. I've got two questions, and I don't know who to direct them to. So I'll just ask them, and you can decide. Abhishek, I saw that you were quoted quite recently in another interview saying that some T20 leagues had not succeeded because they overpriced themselves. I think you were implying that they were overambitious. But you also said in that same interview that we might be surprised at how big some of the names are who've expressed an interest in buying the teams. I don't know whether the team auction's taken place yet, and also sponsoring the league. And the second question is, a lot of our listeners and viewers won't know that 34 of the 108 member countries of the ICC are European. So is the idea to will they be predominantly Scottish, Irish, and Netherlands players? But is it also an opportunity to give players from, I don't know, Germany, Guernsey, Jersey?
Absolutely. I think what's unique about the European T20 League after we got the ICC sanction is obviously, as you said, close to a third of all the ICC countries are from Europe, and the idea is to get all of them involved in the European T20 League. And what we have set out is that you have to have 7 local players and 4 international overseas players. But of those 7, you can use them from associate countries in Europe. So you're actually giving a platform to most of the European cricket playing nations to be able to give their local players an opportunity to come and play in a world-class tournament. Therein, hopefully, you know, giving rise to a lot more cricketing talent from countries which are not historically renowned to have cricketing talent. So yes, we do look upon it as that opportunity. And that's one of the things that really excited me, was to be able to give a lot of smaller cricket playing nations the opportunity and platform to give their players, you know, a team in which they can play alongside some of the world's greatest cricketers, be coached by some of the world's greatest coaches, and work under some of the best team owners in the cricketing world.
I think that's probably more for Warren, because obviously coming from the sort of the Irish side, I mean, are you looking to build the infrastructure of these areas as well? Because me and Manners, whenever we talk to anybody from the emerging nations or, you know, players, coaches, administrators, I've always believed that the way we promote cricket in Ireland and Scotland and the Netherlands is that they should have a test match every year. Instead of the touring side, which will be India this year, they come and play in one of them nations in a one-day series or a test match series to make sure that they're still, you know, promoting cricket in Europe. It's a better preparation. It grows the international world, and it stops in, you know, the test team that comes to England playing against a county second 11. So it's promoting the world. We've also got to have the infrastructure. You've got to have the grounds. You've got to have the facilities. Are the facilities going to be there to attract not only the best teams to come and play and give them the best facility, but also the best players as well? Because I'm assuring that you're looking to bring in some big names.
Yeah. And look, to answer your first one first, Steve. So when we sit down and arrange the FTP, I mean, the one before last, it was relatively straightforward because we had this thing called the World Cup Super League, which meant that everyone played each other, or was supposedly meant to play each other, but then it was, as you know, it was scrapped. So last time round, what's the first conversation I have and my team have? It's go to speak to, well, it used to be John Carr, you know, all the guys from ECB, and say, right, who's touring through England? And as you know, the dance card of both India, England and Australia get filled up first. So that's the most sensible conversation to have first. Who's coming through? Because New Zealand doesn't want to tour to England in 2026 and then have to come up to England or to Ireland in 2027. Obviously, it's very expensive. So that's what we do there. Infrastructure, I would say, so the day after we became a full member in 2017, I did a speech in Dublin that said, do not expect that tomorrow we're going to look like a full member. We're not going to suddenly have stadiums all over the place. We're not going to have a treble the size of our playing footprint who can suddenly, you know, participate and be on the radar of the international coaches. It will take time, and it has taken time. But the beginning of this year, the Irish government put in its programme for government over the next 5 years that not only will the Irish government support our co-hosting the T20 World Cup in 2030, but on the back of that, it will construct a stadium. So that stadium is going to be in place now by 2029. We're going to start building. We're going through all the planning at the moment. The green stuff is going to be built in 2026. Well, I'd say it's going to take 2 to 3 years for all of that to properly settle and lay with all the claims and the loans. And we'll be playing international cricket a year in advance of the World Cup in 2030. We're using the same principles to work with the Northern Ireland Executive. We've got more infrastructure in our ground in Belfast, called the Northern Ireland Civil Service Sports Association. And we're working with the Northern Ireland Executive to make sure that more investments can come on the back of hosting the World Cup. So that's a long response to a yes.
Yeah, but and I think the point I was trying to sort of come to, and probably more for Abhishek, is that if you're going to invest in this tournament and you're going to try and bring in investment from everywhere else, the visual point of view is the visual part of it has got to be very good, because you want something to look good. So if the tournament is played on a park field and there's nothing really there, it doesn't have the same grandeur as a franchise tournament that's played in other parts of the world. So I think what I'm trying to say is, are the nations getting their houses in order to make sure the stadiums are in place to not only attract good players, but that the facility will be such that it's going to be, from a visual point of view, a great tournament for other investment to come in.
Yeah, look, there's a bit of chicken and egg about these things. So when we became a full member, we thought that the very fact that we were a full member hosting cricket nations in the FTP was going to automatically get the government to invest. It's the cost of infrastructure, Steve, it's tens of millions, hundreds of millions. These things don't shift on a dime, particularly where cricket nations aren't established as major sports. So we became a test nation back in 2017, and it's taken us the best part of about 7 to 8 years to get the government to invest at this stage. And it's through things like having World Cups in place, through things, the potential for the T20 Premier League to come along. You know, if you think about the amount of money it takes, governments aren't going to invest like that, particularly, you're now suddenly in an environment whereby there are going to be tariffs imposed between the European Union and the US. Every government's got to make investment decisions. So for the Irish Cricket Island to have convinced our government to spend 8-9 figures worth to invest in cricket is a massive seismic thing for us. So that's huge. And obviously what happens is you've got to construct the product first. You've got to prove the concept first to say, I'll tell you what, you have managed to bring in thousands of fans. You have managed to bring in lots of people from overseas. I tell you what, now you're worth investing in. So we've now crossed that barrier with the Irish government. And I have no doubt that on the back of the success that we expect the European T20 Premier League to have, that same waterfall effect is going to happen in both Scotland and in the Netherlands.
Yep.
Very good.
Okay, can we talk money, which I know is close to both of you? Warren, having used part of or all of your life savings at one point to keep Cricket Island afloat, and Abhishek, you've said that I think you described your involvement in professional sport as a hobby, albeit a very expensive one. I think it's moved on from being a hobby now. But you said it was expensive, but I mean, you're obviously very good at running teams as well. I mean, you won the Pro Kabaddi League with the Jaipur Pink Panthers and the Indian Super League with your Chennai team. So yeah, it's personal money for both of you, or has been, or is. And I just mentioned all those competing leagues that people will say you're up against, but this is different, isn't it? Actually, you're not competing with the 100 or the Caribbean Premier. This is a completely different market. I'm thinking money from the Denmark Tourism Board or the Italian Tourism Board.
Is it personal money? Yes, it is. That's the way I like to work. I get personally and emotionally invested in whatever I do. That's the only way I know how to work. And it's served me well so far. I mean, in the last decade or so, it served me well. And that's the energy that I bring. As far as the second part of your question, yes, I don't think they're not competing in that sense, because the timing is very different. It's demarcated, and plus it's a different market altogether. And God willing, tomorrow we are able to make this into an immensely popular tournament. You're going to see teams coming up from several different countries as well, which is what we were asked before, and that is the long-term plan of the ETPL. That just broadens your horizons and your market even further. So yes, like I said, the potential is there. Is there a lot of work to be done? Absolutely. But anything that you start from the bottom up, there is a lot of work to be done, but it's important to have the people that are invested in it to have the right attitude. And I do believe we have a team in partnership with Cricket Island who see the long-term project and want to achieve the long-term project. So yes, I think we're all good so far.
And I think just finally from me, I was watching an interview with Sir Sebastian Coe, Lord Sebastian Coe, yesterday, who I think is he's in the running to be the Olympic the Olympic chairman in the next, I think Thursday, I think it is. That's when they have the voting for that process. But cricket is in the Olympics in 2028. How important is it? Because there's a lot of Olympic nations you're covering here. Your European Super League is covering a lot of nations where we don't know what the Olympic blueprint is going to look like. Could this be an avenue to go, right, hold on, this tournament is getting better and better, and we are now making our competitors are pushing our teams towards potential Olympic qualification as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic incentive for everybody. Look, the Olympics are the Olympics. Having said that, there's the cricket playing nations already know the potential of cricket and what it can bring. With that, and then going to the Olympics, I think, the world becomes your new horizon after that, and you're going to get many other nations who are going to say, hey, wait a second, if we may not have the talent currently to play in the apex tournaments that are privately run, but if we can get a cricketing team, then we want to enter the Olympics, let's start pumping money into cricketing infrastructure, because this is a sport we'd like to build up. Just to give you a small anecdote, before coming to Dublin, I was in Tashkent, Uzbekistan for a film festival where a movie of mine was premiering. But I met the Tashkent men's and women cricket team, the Uzbeki men and women cricket team. And, one of the conversations that came up, and they're building their own cricket stadium now. And this is a nation which is known for wrestling and boxing.
Yeah.
No, I think they're possibly the best in the world. They churn out gold medal after gold medal. And one of the conversations was, hey, I said, how come cricket? They're like, no, we obviously we have great ties with India and so on and so forth. But it's going to become a Olympic sport. So we want to start working on it right now. And that was very reassuring for me, because it goes to show that smaller cricketing nations aspire to not only qualify for the Olympics, but then once you qualify for the Olympics, you're creating talent that can come and play in the ETPL as well. So yes, I definitely feel it's related, and cricket becoming an Olympic sport is going to be a huge boon.
And I can tell you as well, Steve, is a really good question, because the currency that the Olympics has in a nation like Ireland, which has done so well in the Olympics, I think it's per head of a population, it's got more gold medals, or it's like second and third in the global table. And the Olympics was specifically mentioned off the back of the press release that the government put out last year, when it said it was giving the green light to beginning to do tendering for our national stadium. So, we became a member of the Olympic Federation of Ireland last year. We're going for full membership this year. Suddenly, it just raises the profile of the sport. We've always kind of fallen between the big three team sports here in Ireland: Gaelic games, rugby and football, and the Olympic family. We're now a member of the Olympic family, and it's just giving us that extra impetus in terms of visibility and government recognition. And that's in an established test nation. It's going to have even more of an impact in the likes of the Netherlands and those other European nations Abhishek was talking about.
Right, Harmy, I think we can agree that we're both very excited about that. We're running right out of time, as always, so we're going to have to rush through the final word. But I've got three for you. Let's start with Nat Sivabrant before moving on to Pakistan cricket, from the brilliant to the ridiculous. Nat Sivabrant had an amazing WPL. She was the leading run scorer by over 100 runs. She scored 30 on a difficult pitch in the final for the Mumbai Indians women, and took 3 for 30 as they beat the Delhi Capitals women by 8 runs in the WPL. And it's just the kind of shot in the arm that England women's cricket needed, I think, after the Ashes humiliation. And so congratulations to her. And she wasn't the only English woman to succeed in the WPL. So word on her and the tournament, which I thought was again a great success. Pakistan cricket, well, go from bad to worse, don't they? They've gone over to New Zealand to take on the Black Caps in their own backyard, and they bowled out for 91 in the first game. Okay, long journey, acclimatization, green wicket, so things have to get better in the second. They made 135 in the second game, and New Zealand chased them in 13 overs.
Yeah, it looks as though it is going from bad to worse. I mean, come on, Akib Javed, what do you got? Show us your mettle now, because you have getting rid of 26 coaches, how many selectors, all these things that you've came out and said, but you need a level of stability, or try and have some stability. And it's not, obviously it's not started that well with an ICC trophy, and then this series so far. I mean, there were shambles, unfortunately. I feel so sorry. I love Pakistan cricket, but I mean, what with the 100 and players not getting selected, and it just seems as though they are now just getting pushed further and further away from the world cricket because of their relationship with India. And I really feel for the players in that front, because it's a political thing. It's not anything personal, but it just looks now that they're going down the road with the West Indies and being a little bit of a shambles. I'm so pleased for Nat Skipper. England had a torrid time in Australia, and you're right, there were one or two others who have had great tournaments, but I didn't realise it was the final. I must admit, I've enjoyed watching some of the games. I've only seen some of the games. I've enjoyed watching some of the games. I think it was a better tournament than last year, which is all you want, like 100 was from the women's point of view. And I was in a bar looking through one eye on Saturday. It was just after the rugby had finished, and you could see she was working so hard, and to score 30 off 28, and it was a difficult surface. So I didn't realise that was the final. So congratulations to Nat, and hopefully, she probably will be the next England women's captain. I think that am I about right? I think she's probably front runner for it. So massive amount of confidence going into what is going to be a pressurized summer, because the level of investment gone into the game, of the women's game, there's more scrutiny on it, and that's going to be natural. And I think that's why there was a whole euphoria about how poorly England were in the winter in Australia. And if it is Nat Skipper, she's got a pressurized situation on this summer of galvanizing England, getting them back on track, and hopefully having a successful summer.
Yeah, new ball, bat 3, and captain. Whew. Not even the great Ben does that. And
No.
the final word. The Saudis are coming, Harmy. They have proposed a new T20 league, and they've been backed by Cricket Australia, strongly backed by Cricket Australia. The idea at this stage is to have 6 elite teams who meet up for a week, 4 times a year, to emulate the majors in golf and tennis. So a week of T20 cricket, 6 elite teams, and that'll be in 4 exotic locations, presumably one of them in Jeddah or Riyadh. And obviously gazillions of dollars involved. Richard Gould, ECB chief executive, says there is no scope or demand for such an idea, and we would not support it. But Cricket Australia, what do you make of it? We're going to do a whole section on this in the weeks to come, probably.
Yeah, we haven't got a great deal on it. I mean, the minute Saudi Arabia is mentioned in sporting terms, you just get out of the way. I mean, not even India can compete. I mean, they can't. I've just spent 5 days in London now supporting a team who is owned by the Saudis. I mean, you look at everything, the literature you see about how much money everybody's got in the game, and then how much money Newcastle United's owners have got. It's just different leagues compared. I think it was something like 48 or 70 odd million that Man City has got in England, and the Saudis is like 400 odd billion. It's just not even close to comparing. So if they come in like they have done with Newcastle, and they're all in, and the feet are, both in the game, then I mean, I think you would even look at India and think even India haven't got enough money to deal with the Saudis. So I hope and I pray, from a cricket and lovers point of view, that India and Saudi Arabia can get together and find a way of working together, and not like the Golf Live League and the PGA Tour, because that would harm the game of cricket. If they got it together, I reckon, if you're a cricketer, 17-year-old, 16-year-old coming into the game, my Charlie's just about to sort of join Durham's academy. The young players that I have got a lot of sort of invested time in, the likes of Michael Vaughan's son Archie, who's 18, Rocky Flintoff, who's 16. These have got a great chance of making an awful lot of money if India and Saudi Arabia get into the same bed, because I think that takes on football in this country. It probably takes on the major league stuff in America as well, because, I mean, they've both got endless pots of money when it comes to cricket in terms.
Let's hope we can get a commentary gig, eh?
Absolutely, man. It'd be nice. I wouldn't mind going over to. I'm sure the golf courses in Jeddah or Riyadh will be good. So I must admit, I've spent a lot of money this weekend supporting the football team. So if it comes to the cricket, I'll have a good go at that as well.